We have reporting live from the Democratic National Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. Old friend of the show, Bob Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton drug czar General Barry McCaffrey. He's also former chief of staff for the House Committee on Aging, as well as being former communications director for both Congressman Rangel of New York as well as Conyers of Michigan. Bob, good to have you back.
Alan, it's a pleasure to be reporting live from the Democratic National Convention. If our listeners can hear the din of noise, the gavel has just come down. Cory Booker has just introduced the platform, gave a history-changing speech where he was so effective the crowd was roaring at each couple of words and chanted with liberty and justice for all right with him as he was reciting it. It was really brought some tears down to my eyes to see an effective rhetorical speech where he had the crowd pulsating with him after I quite candidly saw a few very boring speeches before that, and Cory Booker turned the crowd around. You will hear reports about this making of a new star in the Democratic Party that just happened.
Now, let me, Bob, let me ask you, this new star in the Democratic Party, Cory Booker, is also the one who famously said quite recently that the attacks against Romney and his history at Bain Capital were things that he found nauseating and were observations with which he completely disagreed. Now, he walked those back, but we all know that the walk back never has...
You see what a big tent we have in the Democratic Party?
Yes, I like it, but is it a tent of welcome or remonstration?
It is an absolute tent of welcome because Cory Booker was made chairman of the platform committee. Our platform, by the way, which is being approved tonight, has from the middle out, whereas the Republican platform is from the top down, which is what caused the crash in the first place. America will see the difference, Alan, based on the platform that we're approving tonight. And then later tonight, Michelle Obama will speak, and we know that she's going to be very effective in saying how warm and fuzzy he is and what a nice guy.
Well, it's intriguing that you should talk about the cause of all of our meltdown. I'm wondering, do you see the Democrats getting a little more specific in their remedies, number one? And number two, do you see them continuing the overall message of, well, this is an economy that Obama inherited?
Well, Alan, it's a good question. A lot of the Republicans have been making a whole hoopla out of this. Are you better off in not answering it right? And I was on Fox and Friends yesterday morning. You know, I regularly am their Democratic punching bag, and I kind of enjoy it, and they enjoy it too. But I fought back. I said, yes, we're better off. Yes, Obama broke the rising bubble of the first 2 months of 800,000 jobs lost and has gained 4.5 million jobs since then. He has caused the stock market to double in his period, and unemployment, which was at near 10, is now down to 8.3, and we hope going down from there. You have a lot of work to do, no question about it, but he has done a great job in reversing the crash.
Bob, you have to forgive me. I live in a universe. I live in a, if you will, world of universal standards when it comes to applying facts in their self-evident form. I'm looking at the current stats. And if we go by your own guy's measure, who said if I can't get this right in about 3.5 years, we're talking about a one-term proposition, using the president's own measure, by his own standards, he has unambiguously failed. In 2009, when he took over, unemployment was at 7.8. Now it's 8.3. Median income just under 55. Now it's just under 51. Gas a gallon, $1.85. Yeah. Now it's 378. National debt, 10.6 trillion. Now 16 trillion. He said that because Bush, his predecessor, ran up the debt too much, he was exposing himself as being unpatriotic. Why is it your guy can't subject himself to the same standards to which he subjected his predecessor, Bob Weiner?
I'm going to be very specific. The rising bubble of those first 2 months, you got to start the clock with Obama after the first 2 months of the 800,000 jobs lost a month. Then he has gained 4.5 million. He got Al-Qaeda on the debt increasing. Those are the Bush tax cuts that he was forced into political compromise to accept. Money doesn't grow on trees. And the fact that the debt went up and the wars continued that Bush started is what is causing 2/3 of our debt. So what Obama has said is by stopping the wars and downing the Bush tax cuts for the rich so that it equalizes a little bit and gives a little bit back, we're going to use half the money from the wars for the debt and half for people in infrastructure programs. The Republicans, on the other hand,
the
get the money from cuts in Social Security,
but the
Medicare,
infrastructure,
and people programs.
Bob, the infrastructure strategy seems to ring hollow, because when Obama put forward that $800+ billion stimulus package, there were only about $36 billion set aside for road projects and infrastructure endeavors, but A, very little of that money ever found its way into projects, and B, even the president acknowledged that he was wrong and that these shovel-ready projects were not so shovel-ready. But what he was caught red-handed doing was taking a peripheral observation, inferring it as if it were a conclusive analysis, and then projecting it as such. He took a very minuscule amount of the money for that stimulus package and sold it as emblematic of the entire thing. And then we come to find out that very, very little of even that small amount ever made it to the road system. So given that he was incorrect with his earlier promise on infrastructure, why is it we should now take him more seriously this second go-around? Bob Weiner.
Now I'm going to ask you to do a little homework, Alan, and all our listeners. Google percent of stimulus for tax cuts requested by Republicans. Answer, 40%. How's that working out for you as a job creator?
This cannot be good news, is it? Is the question to my friend and colleague Robert Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton Drug Czar General Barry McCaffrey. Bob, are you with us?
Hi, I'm sorry, Alan. It's all chaos here. What do you want me to respond to?
I wanted you to respond to the recent finding by the Hill newspaper that says that 54% say the president does not deserve re-election based on job performance, while only 40% say yes. This cannot be good news at the convention today. Bob Weiner.
And what percent did it say Mitt Romney deserves election based on the specifics of his platform? Did you get that poll?
There's only a 2% difference, and it's in Romney's favor. Always happy to answer the one. First, you answer the initial. What is the reaction to the news?
I just
right now, 54%. No, that's not. That's a question of another nature. That's not responding on point.
It is, but everything weighs.
Here's the question. Maybe your hearing is a little more obstructed there because of the noise. We'll try once again.
I heard the question.
The Hill reports that 54% say the president does not deserve re-election based on job performance, while only 40% say yes. What about that specific observation, and that specific observation only, Bob Weiner?
Well, it doesn't reflect in the polls that show the election criteria, because they are seeing, more important than the fact that Obama has been obstructed by the Republicans, which is also what you will find in the polls by 15 points, that Mitt Romney has no specifics in his platform. What about the 54% that say the president does not deserve re-election based on job performance? What about the 54% that say no, you responded, but you did not answer. You responded, but you did not answer. You're exposing what I referenced earlier. Every answer is a response, but not every response is an answer. It is true you gave me a response. I'm going to give you one more time to answer it. What say you about the fact that the Hill is reporting that 54% say that the president does not deserve re-election based on job performance, while only 40% say he does? Well, I'm glad you repeated it for me, because I didn't understand, so I'll tell you my answer. The poll didn't ask what percentage of you feel that the Republicans have obstructed the president from getting his job done. By that measure,
you never have to answer a question ever again. All you have to do is restate the standard, and now all of a sudden, that which you may have been failing to meet now looks as if you've met it. You have still failed. You have just refused. You have just refused. You have just refused to answer a question by pointing another question that you think should have been asked. And by that measure, any argument can be expanded into a multitude of other arguments, essentially allowing you and those of your kind to escape from your half of the original rub. And why would that be? Because apparently you cannot answer it. Do you have a better response than citing a question that you wished had been asked but was not when it comes to the question I posed to you about 54% of the people in the Hill poll saying that the president does not deserve re-election based on job performance? Do you have another response to give me besides referencing a question that you wished had been asked but was not? Bob Weiner.
Yes, Mitch McConnell's statement that he will obstruct everything Obama wants to do has given the Congress a 9% approval rating, which is a lot lower than what you just described.
All right, next question I have is, what do you think we're going to learn from the First Lady today? And is this sort of a counterbalance to what we heard last week from Ann Romney, and do you find it to be, we're not going to, aren't we just going to be hearing lots of love and affection? This is not going to be dispositive of any policy observation, pretty much like Ann Romney's was not really much discussion on policy observation either. Bob Weiner.
Yeah, I know. I was glad to learn that Romney makes pancakes, irons his shirts, and gets a couple shirts from Costco once in a while, and is a nice guy who has family events. I don't think we're going to learn a lot more from Michelle Obama either. We're going to see the personal side.
Now, what about guests like Sandra Fluke? She, of course, is of the opinion that her desire to have contraception translates into our obligation to provide it for her. Do you see this is the message you really want to put out there at a time when it appears anyway, in poll after poll, the number one issue is the economy? Bob Weiner.
Well, Sandra Fluke is the economy, and Lily Ledbetter of the Romney won't take a position on is the economy. The fact that women are still only earning about 75 cents on the dollar, to me, Alan, having a wife who's a full professor at George Washington Medical Center and discovering cures for cancer is outrageous. And when she shows me how she's a spokesman on CNN and the Washington Post, New York Times, but earns maybe $25,000 a year less than comparable, less accomplished male professors in her department, that bothers me. So that's the part of the economy Democrats are willing to cure, and the Republicans decided to block and not take a position on the bill.
We've also been hearing that we're going to be somehow treated to real specifics on the economy. But let's face it, the administration has been anything but anxious to give specifics. So what do you see them saying in the days ahead that we haven't already heard before? What's going to be new, at least from Messrs. Biden and Obama?
There's a specific position that President Obama has taken that has not gotten a lot of press, but is remarkably specific and directive in terms of what we can do. That as we close down the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, the president has said he will use half the money for the debt and half for structure and people programs. On the other hand, the Republicans in their platform will get the money from Medicare and Social Security and cut those programs to shreds and cost $6,000 a person on Medicare and drive people into poverty by privatizing Social Security.
Bob, I got to ask you, how does the president have any moral authority in this subject, given that he's already been caught red-handed removing $716 billion from Medicare in order to fund the Affordable Care Act? Even Obama's own Medicare actuary says that you can't use Medicare to fund all these federal outlays and still extend that same fund by 10 years, as has been asserted by the president, Bob Weiner.
Funny that Paul Ryan uses the same money for different purposes, but what President Obama does with that money is very different. He plows it into paying seniors drugs and filling the donut hole. That's something that people want, and Ryan uses it to extend benefits and give the money to Wall Street. But
it doesn't address the Medicare actuary's argument that you can't take hundreds of billions of dollars out of Medicare on one hand and then with the other hand claim that you've extended it by 10 years. So how does the president get around that factoid? And by the way, that's also been echoed by the Congressional Budget Office. Bob Weiner.
Well, that's not the way he extended Medicare by 10 years. The fact of providing health care through national health insurance so that we can at least try to catch up to the rest of the world, even though it's through the private sector. The rest of the world does single payer because we did compromise with the Republicans, even though they didn't vote for it. That's what he does with the money, is he pays for people's health care. Nothing wrong with that.
But why does he claim that he's extending Medicare by 10 years, given that? So you agree with the president over the Medicare actuary as well as the Congressional Budget Office?
The Congressional Budget Office said the $716 billion is very real and very appropriate and counts and national health insurance as $100 billion savings this decade